Hi guys, so today we're going to be going over kind of a couple of things involving IV stuff. So first we're going to teach just how to regulate IV medication. We're going to be doing a piggyback on medications, and then also just kind of how to prime the tubing and how to get that kind of set up. So first, a couple of things we want to make sure we get our supplies. So first of all, my little bolus of saline as well as what we're going to be running for piggyback. So the 100 mils of sodium chloride with 250 amoxicillin. Next thing you know, you want the tubing as well, which I have right here next to me, so a primary and a secondary set of tubing. So once we get that supplies, we want to make sure we're going into the right patient. We're just kind of going over the right stuff, make sure we have the order for it as well. And when we come into the room, we want to practice hand hygiene as well, because this is going to be an invasive thing, because involving any type of medications and intravenous lines is always going to be something we want to make sure we're top tier in terms of cleanliness. While doing so, we also want to wear gloves during the whole situation, because we want to keep this as sterile as possible, because this is going to be going into an invasive area. So kind of a couple things we'll go over as well. So first we're going to start off just with kind of priming the tubing and getting that set up. So I'm going to put on my gloves here now. And when we're priming the tubing, so we're going to go ahead and open up our bag. So, this. So we have our bag, so this is where we put in any medications, and this is actually what we will be spiking it. So here we have our little bag of saline as well, 250 mils, okay? So we have that. Next we have the tubing. So what we have here is that we're going to go over some of the parts of the tubing here. So what we have is the actual spike itself, which is right here. See that it's covered up? This is because we just want to keep it for sterility. I'll uncap it once we're ready. We have our drip chamber here that we have. This is where we will calculate the drips to regulate our flow, and we'll just go over that once we get into spiking it and everything else. The roller clamp itself, this is what's going to be controlling our actual rate and our drip rates. So we're going to go ahead and just put that at the very bottom, because once we actually spike the bag, it's going to kind of flow right through, and we don't want to do that just quite yet. So we're going to have that so that way it's stopped early on. And then kind of another thing we want to kind of go over is that the wipe port. So this is where we will be putting in our piggyback medications. So that's going to be there, and this is kind of what it just looks like. And then we have our hub. This is where it's going to be connected to the actual IV itself when we're running the fluids. So just kind of wanted to give a breakdown of those parts. So we're going to go ahead and spike the bag here. So go ahead and uncap it, make sure it doesn't touch anything. We're going to go ahead and just pull that cap off, and then we're going to go ahead and spike the bag here. So just kind of go in and twist. Make sure that that's good. As you can see here, we're doing well there. We're going to kind of squeeze it so that way we can get some fluid in there. Just kind of do that. Okay, so then from here what we're going to be doing is that we're going to kind of hang that up. And what we're going to do is that we're going to actually open up the line here. I got a little place that we can put this in. So what we're going to do is we're going to uncap this for now, and then we'll recap it. So what I'm going to do here is go ahead and open it up so that way it primes the tubing. So as you're going to start to see, it's going to be going ahead and kind of flowing downwards. We'll kind of leave that. Boom. Once you know that it doesn't have any air bubbles, which is a very dangerous thing to have because it can cause any pulmonary embolisms or anything like that, what we're going to kind of be doing here is that we're going to be kind of calculating the drip rate. So the order says that we want to have it at, we're going to be running at 150 mils. Well, we calculated that, and as you can see here that we have it as 38 drops per minute. So we want to go ahead and kind of calculate that. So this is what we use to just kind of regulate it, as I said earlier. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start opening it up a little bit so that way we can start seeing some of the drops. So we want to count this for about a minute. So I'm just going to kind of go over it. And I will increase it or decrease it as needed. So there I just kind of needed to increase it just because it was going a little bit slower as we were kind of starting out. So there we go. That's about There we go. So from there, we've already calculated what it was. So we wanted the 38 drops per minute, and that's roughly about the right rate that we have there. It technically says it was 37.5, but we always want to round up for all these numbers. So we want to do that, and by doing so, we can split that either by 15 seconds, multiply it by 4, or we can count the whole minute. So I wanted to count the whole minute just to have it reassured, so there's that. From there, now it says that it wants us to regulate the actual IV itself. So now we're going to be lowering it down to 75 mils. And in doing so, we're going to actually be running it at 15 mils. So we're going to just pretty much be splitting that in half. So now if I were to do that, we're going to go ahead and count it up just for a minute. And I'm going to just kind of slow this down. All right, I just kind of counted that for 15 seconds to multiply that. So now that's going to be at what we want for 19, which is good. And so now that's how you would regulate kind of an IV drip. And you want to make sure when you're doing these things that you still complete hand hygiene. You still have go over kind of just the orders to make sure that they're correct. And you just want to make sure that all that is actually flowing in itself. So next what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting in a secondary. So this is going to be our secondary fluid. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. When you're running a secondary, you want to make sure of a couple of things. You want to make sure that you go over the 6 rights of medication, because this is where we're going to be giving our 250 amoxicillin through this bag. So one thing you have to make sure is you have the right patient, right medication, right dose, right time, right route, and right documentation. Those are the 6 rights of medication that you want to go over with the patient. So kind of some things. Similar things. You got the spike bag, you got the drip rate, or the drip chamber. You have the roller clamp as well, and then you also have the hub itself, which will be going into that Y port that I was talking about earlier. So kind of the same concept here, except we have this as well. This is just to have it, make sure that we can hang the primary bag a little bit lower than the secondary for this, because we want this to be higher up when we're running it, so that way this runs first. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and spike the bag here. So we're gonna uncap it. We're gonna go ahead and take this off, spike the bag like so, and there we have it. So now we want to do kind of the same thing, and the fact that we just want to make sure we prime the tubing a little bit. So we're just going to kind of pull some fluid in there in that little drip chamber. And then what we're going to do is that we're going to be running this. We're going to open up the whole line, and we're going to make sure that it is running through. There we go. Make sure there's no air bubbles. All right, there we go. So we have primed this tubing as well now. So we're going to go ahead and cap that. And so now I want to kind of go back to something that we were talking about earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of cap this at the moment. We want to go back to the Y port. So this is where we're going to actually be plugging this in when I uncap it. We're going to be hooking this up. So something you want to make sure that you do is that you have a little alcohol wipe. And just because for sterility's sake, we're going to kind of go over this, and we're going to just rub that little port here just for a couple seconds, because this is just to ensure that we have a cleanliness. And let that kind of dry out a little bit. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to uncover this cap. And then we're just going to kind of push in and just make sure that that's on correctly. Tighten that up. Boom. So this will be higher than our other bag. And from there on, we kind of both let them kind of flow together. So we want to keep making sure that it's the same drip rate from there. And this will be running at 250 mils. So this will be running by pretty quick in 15 minutes. So this is going to be running by really fast. So we just kind of want that to go in. Sorry, I apologize. It'll be going in at 100 mils per hour. So this will be going by fairly quick. This will be going in through the 15 minutes. And so that's how you would administer piggyback. And I also demonstrated how you would start up the IV fluids. So there's that for you, and thank you very much for your time. So